Shalom Rama, V'yaseh Shalom Aleinu, V'yakol Yisrael, V'yimru.
Amen. Good morning, everyone. Jackie Mason has a famous routine where a guy goes to a therapist and he tells the therapist that he's trying to find himself. And he spends an hour with the therapist, and at the end of the session, the therapist gives him a bill for $500. And he says, why should I pay the bill? What's if when I find myself, it's not me, it's someone else? Then that person should pay the bill. And then he says, furthermore, what's if when I find myself, it turns out you're me and I'm you? And then in that case, you should be paying me for the session. So in this week's parsha, we learn about tsaras. Tsaras was the biblical era punishment or a symptom for someone who was a gossiper. And the Torah says there are three signs. Se'ei sapachas o beheres. Their skin would start turning white. It would have white blotches. And it's very interesting that there are three different colorations of white. The rabbis say, Se'ei sapachas o beheres is the white of wool, natural wool, or the white of snow, or the white of the membrane of an egg. Now to you and I, we wouldn't really know the difference between those three shades of white, but the Kohen, who is an expert, would go and examine the skin and then send the person, if it was really tsaras, outside the camp for 7 days and re-examine him and so on and so forth. And we explained that this wasn't a dermatological problem, a skin disease that was contagious in a physical sense. You didn't go to a dermatologist. You went to a Kohen, who was a spiritual doctor. And what would he do? He would determine if you have a defect in your soul that's showing up on your skin. It wasn't a physically contaminated disease, but the person had to be in isolation to think about what he did and the damage he caused through his words. And if I had to ask myself, what would you compare the Kohen to? I would compare him not to a dermatologist, but to a therapist. In other words, the Jew had to go talk it over with the Kohen and have a session with him and say, I got these white skin blotches, boils, and obviously I've been speaking negatively about others. And what does that reflect about me? Because they say that when you speak negatively of others, you say more about yourself than about the other person. Because you really project, in therapy there's something called projection. You project onto others your own feelings. So where does gossip and Lashon Hara come from? Slander. It comes from jealousy. And where does jealousy come from? Insecurity. So it all boils down to yourself. We see the world not as it is, but as we are. So therefore I need to go have a session with the Kohen and say, what's going on inside my soul that I'm seeing negative in other people rather than seeing positive? And the Kohen would work with you. But here's an interesting law. The law says that what happens if the skin turns completely white? Kulo hafach lavan. So then the Torah says, Taharu, he's pure, he's clean. The question is, first of all, why is the color white the symptom for Lashon Hara? You would think it would be black. Shows his soul is blackened or darkened. White is usually cleanliness and purity. Why would the sign of Lashon Hara be white? And the second question is, why if it's completely white, then you're pure? If anything, if white shows you have tsaras, purely white should be a greater sign of tsaras. Why are you clean if you're all white? And the answer is very much a therapeutic answer. The Talmud said way before Sigmund Freud, when you have a problem, you should talk it over with someone. Why? Because when you keep things inside, then it causes the greatest damage to your essence, to your core, to your neshama. So the first step in any process of rehabilitation is to communicate it, to share it with others. So when the white shows up on the skin, it shows that it's coming out. And whatever negativity is there, it's not being suppressed, it's not being bottled up, but it's coming to the surface. And the more it comes out, when it's completely white, it means that the person has cleansed himself from it. He has spoken about it and discussed it with the Kohen to the point that he has sent it out. He had expelled it from his inside. And then is the sign that now he's pure, now he's clean. So the Kohen would help the person address whatever it is that's the cause of this Lashon Hara. There's a story told about Rabbi Mendel Futterfass. He was a great Hasidic rabbi. And when he was in prison, he was arrested under the communists for teaching and observing Judaism. And he was in the prison in the gulags in Siberia for 10 years. And when he came out, he eventually came to Israel, and he told a lot of stories of his experiences. And one of the experiences he told was that it was illegal in prison to play cards. but they had cards, the prisoners, they smuggled it in, and they would always play cards. When they heard the jail guards coming, they would hide the cards. And these were professional criminals. They were there for their acts of criminality. And the guards would come in and say, you guys are playing cards, we know it, and where are the cards? And they would say, no, we weren't playing cards. They would do searches throughout the prison cells, couldn't find the cards. He says sometimes they do strip searches, couldn't find the cards without fail. And he was always amazed how they would hide the cards, and all the guards could never find the cards. So one day he said to his fellow prisoners, where do you hide the cards? This is baffling. And they said, we'll tell you if you promise not to say anything. He said, I promise I won't tell anyone. He says, when the guards come in, we pass the cards around, and one of the prisoners slips the pack of cards into one of the pockets of the uniforms of the guards. He says, they search and they search and they search, and we're professional pickpocketers, and when they're finished searching, someone pickpockets it right back out of their pockets. And that's why they never find the cards. And Mendelfut said, we learn a great lesson in this. We're always looking in other people's pockets. His fault, her fault, she did this, he's the cause, right? That's what people do in therapy. They think whose fault it is besides themselves. But sometimes the Kohen helps you look in your own pocket, not in someone else's pocket. Lashon Hara is you projecting whatever's bothering you onto someone else. When you see something negative in someone else, forget about looking at that person. Look into yourself and say, what is the cause? What is troubling me? And when you expel that negativity from yourself, then you're purely white, you can cleanse yourself, and then as today's the day before Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the month of freedom, the month of Pesach, we could find personal freedom in our own lives.